Good morning, everyone. It is 10 o'clock. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is National Urban League. I hear some background noise. I'm going to see if anyone needs to mute their line. Michelle Thompson, I believe. I just muted your line. Okay, great. We're going to try that again. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for the National Urban League Mature Worker Program Virtual Job Readiness Series. We're very excited today. We have a great presentation set up for you. Today's presenter is Marcia Haygood. Marcia Haygood is the president of Stepwise Associates, a career and development consulting firm. She is also a talent development expert as well as an empowerment coach. She has co-authored the book, Little Black Book of Success, Laws of Leadership for Black Women, and she is a former executive vice president of human resources and administration at New Line Cinema. To tell you a little bit more about Marcia, she is a longtime friend of the Urban League. She has supported our work with our leadership development programs, as well as consulting work for our staff internal to the office. I want to give a big welcome and thank you so much to Marcia Haygood. And Marcia, I'm going to hand it over to you for you to walk us through today's session. Thank you.
Well, good morning to everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you today. I'm excited about our topic. We're going to bust some job search myths and talk about how you go about preparing yourself for the job that you want. The real world and busting job search myths is a good topic to talk to everyone about, but especially mature workers. Looking for a job at any age can be a daunting task. However, older or mature workers or those re-entering the workforce after a time away, it can be an unnerving experience, but not an impossible one. So we're not going to just talk about the things that are problems or challenges, but we want to talk about solutions as well. And we're going to leave some time at the end of this presentation to answer any questions that you might have. So be thinking about those questions as well. Let's try to get these solutions out in the open so that everyone can share. There's some things that we can do to sort of help prepare for a successful job search. And I talk about the 3 Ps. And those 3 Ps are on your slides today. It's being positive, being prepared, and then practicing. And let's talk about each one of those. I think about being positive as keeping an open mind and a positive outlook. And I dare say that most people would think that they're positive, but they do a couple of things that I'm going to challenge you on, and if this fits what you do, I'm going to ask you to think about changing it. First of all, think about your neutral face. What you look like right now when someone annoys you or someone challenges you or someone asks you a question that makes you feel uncomfortable. What does your face look like? You know, so often we talk about being positive, but our face looks angry, mean, frustrated, uncomfortable, and we have to think about that positive face that we want to project to people who are talking to us, people who don't know us well. We also have to keep an open mind. You know, I talk to a lot of people of every age, but when I'm talking to mature people, they talk about things about how younger people are perceived. Think about this. Younger people have perceptions of us the same way we have perceptions of them. So let's take off those sort of biases that we all have and say, I expect that I'm going to get a job because I'm worth it. I bring value to whatever company I'm going to. and I'm going to be a good worker. So thinking positively, keeping an open mind, and we'll talk a little more about things that you can do regarding that open mind in a bit. Preparation. Now, this is important because we need to review our skills and then be able to write them down. So it's okay when you say, oh, I know I have good skills, but I want to know, what are they? So write down the skills that you think are important and then update them as necessary. You know, the way you might have done something 5, 10, 15, even 20 years ago is probably not the way it's done today. So updating skills means investing in your own self-development. That might mean taking a course. That might mean updating your computer skills. Usually does mean updating your computer skills. They change from last week. Forget about last month or last year. And then preparing and practicing. And practice means that there are things that you can do to make sure that you're staying updated. You're able to demonstrate that you want to work and that you bring value to an organization. Now, I know we all want to say that's not the way we used to do it, but guess what? That's a good thing. But you don't have to say it in that way, because younger people think that older people are not flexible and are set in their ways. So you want to show that you are flexible. Let's talk about some of those negative myths regarding mature workers. I've already said that the common myth of mature workers is that we're set in our ways, that we're not flexible, that we won't listen to new ways of doing things, that we're not adept in technology, that we are afraid of social media, that we're afraid to utilize the computer. I don't know the last time that I've seen anyone working on a typewriter, so getting familiar with technology and computers is important. That we're slow, you know, that we get tired easily. Now, guess what? We do sometimes get tired, but we don't have to say, oh, I'm tired. Oh, I can't do it this way. Oh, I couldn't sleep last night. We have to show that we're quick and that we're able to do things, that we don't have some of the physical limitations that it is assumed that we have. We can do the things we want to do. That we also, you know, I hear so many people say, I don't want to work for that young whippersnapper. I don't want to work for that person. What do they know? Well, guess what? Younger people, the younger generation, are starting to lead the world. And we have a lot to learn from them, probably as much as they have to learn from us. So saying you don't want to work for a younger boss sort of gives you some limitations. You're going to have to decide whether you want to work with younger people, for younger people. Right now, statistics say there are 4 generations in the workforce. So it's sometimes like having your boss that's the same age as your son or daughter, or, God forbid, your granddaughter or your grandson. We have to get over that bias that sometimes we have. And then younger people think, you know what, I'm not hiring an older person because they just think they know it all. And let me just tell you, we do. We're smart. We know a lot of things. However, sometimes we just have to zip it. It means that you can learn something new. Someone who knows it all does not give themselves an opportunity to learn new things. So we have to bust these myths. These 5 or 6 bullets that are listed on your screen are things that younger people think about us. If they fit some of the things that you say and do, those are the things you have to work on changing to be a successful job seeker and a successful worker in the workforce these days. Let's talk about some of the truths about older workers, though, because there's some positives. Understand that there are things that we may not even think of as positives, but they are. And I want to talk about them because sometimes, you know, we ride the fence on these. We're usually less rebellious. You know, sometimes younger people just want to break the rules because they're trying to move ahead and do things. We're sometimes not as rebellious as that. We'll play by the rules. We want to know what the rules are, tell us what it is, tell us what you want us to do, and we will do them. Doesn't mean we won't ask questions, because we should, but we tend to be less rebellious than the younger generation, and that's a good thing, because your employer doesn't want to have to fight with you to get things done. It's a business after all. They want to tell you what they need, and they want their workers to move forth with that. Mature workers oftentimes have a stronger work ethic. You know, it's not like, you know, I have a cold, I can't go to work. You know, I have a cold, I'll get some tissues, I'll go to work. The stronger work ethic, because we know what it's like to work and get paid and come home and have a life. We're not looking to be the president of the organization. We just want a good job. And we take pride in our work. You know, we want that pat on the back. We want to show that we can do a good job. Now, I'm gonna play devil's advocate on the next one. We're willing to take part-time positions. Now, sometimes yes, and I've talked to mature workers and I get both sides of the fence on this. Sometimes we're willing to take part-time work because we want a position, we want something to do all the time, each day, but we don't want to do these full-time jobs that are going to require staying late, getting in early, working on these projects that may take time. That's part of the group. The other part said, I'm not taking a part-time job because I've always been a manager before and I only want full-time. Well, guess what? If you're open-minded, remember that very first bullet point, if you're open-minded and will take on a part-time position, sometimes even at a level that's, well, usually at a level that's beneath the level that you've been working at before. It allows you to get your foot in the door, meet people, let people see what a good worker you are, and that leads to bigger things. So that willing to take a part-time position should be high on your open-mindedness and flexibility attribute. More respectful to colleagues and clients is one that I think, and I strongly believe that, you know, we have manners. And think about, when I talk about being respectful to colleagues and clients, I'm thinking about, and I want you to think about, when you go into these stores or when you go into these companies, you know how you want to feel, and you know how you meet up with someone who's not respectful, and you say, boy, if I had that job, I would be nicer. I'd have good customer service. You want to work with someone who has good customer service, and those employees that have good customer service skills are recognized for that. So you want to be one of those. You want to be more respectful to both colleagues and clients. And you bring career and life experiences. Those things are good. You may not be able to share them in the same way, but we know that you have these experiences. Utilize those experiences, those life experiences, and those career experiences to help you in your job. And that's part of demonstrating. Remember the first slide that said practice. That's demonstrating that you want to work and demonstrating what you know and demonstrating the value that you bring. You know, it's interesting because so often when we
it's going to pop
Get a
up
job.
on the screen. There's going to be a red reject button. Just hit it.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Is someone speaking?
Is someone speaking? I need everyone on mute. I have everyone on mute. I need everyone to mute your line, please. Thank you.
Okay. Remaining positive during your job search is necessary. And I say to you, and I'm going to challenge you on this, if you're not positive during your job search, understand it shows. It shows when you're talking to people. It shows when you're being interviewed. It shows when you get your job. If you don't want to be there, then you validate the negative perceptions about mature workers. So you want to make sure you don't validate those things. Think of things that you say and things that you do that demonstrate the myths about mature workers. They may not be true. You want to make sure they're not true of you. You want to make sure you avoid some of the myths, avoid saying things that people may think about mature workers. That's not how we used to do it in the old days. Guess what? That is not busting a myth. I'm so tired. I can't wait for 5 o'clock to come. We've all heard people say that. You should not be one of them. You may be tired. Get more rest. You may need to take a walk outside at lunchtime or go sit somewhere during a break. But you can't talk about being tired. That buys into the myths that people have about older workers. The one that I hear often is, I don't do social media. I don't like working on the computer. I don't like doing those things. Well, guess what? The computer is not going away. It's going to be here. So the best thing to do is learn something about it. You're smart. You know, you're the ones who know everything. So utilize that to learn something. You do not have to be a computer genius, but learning how to do a few things is pretty exciting. I mean, a lot of us have a smartphone. Utilize your smartphone for things other than just talking on the telephone. You know, I laugh because I use my phone now when I'm talking to, I have an iPhone, and I use Siri. We press the button, ask a question, you know, using social media. I Google things now where when I was younger, I had to look it up in the encyclopedia. I had to go to a dictionary. Now I can ask a definition on my phone. Start practicing with those little things that you can do to show that you're not afraid of technology. You don't have to know a lot about technology, but you can't be afraid of it. So that takes practice. And then we all have some bias against younger people, the same way that they have biases against us. You have to be careful what you say. Young people are so, think about what you would put in on that line. Fill in the blank. And then work on not being biased in that way. Think about the exception to that rule. Think about when you say that, who you say that to. And let's work to avoid saying those things that can cause us some problem, because the way what we say is what we think, and what we think is how we act. Instead, you can demonstrate the value you bring by making your experiences an asset. Now, the first thing I say to people all the time is smile and have a pleasant attitude. I cannot tell you, you know, I'm a native New Yorker, and people have a perception that people in New York may not always be friendly. I tell you, I walk around New York City smiling. Now, sometimes people think I'm a little nutty, but guess what? 99% of them will smile back. They don't even know that they're not smiling. You can smile. It doesn't have to be a big, cheesy smile, but it does have to be a pleasant face. You would much rather be around someone who has a pleasant face and a pleasant attitude. You want to be one of those people. Think about this. I say this often. Think about someone who's just like you. Would you want to be around them all the time? Would you want to invite them to a party if they were just like you? If the answer is yes, because they're smiling, they're talking about pleasant things, then fine. But if your whole conversation is about how many doctors you went to this week and why your knee hurts and how you don't like social media and how things bother you, then chances are that pleasant attitude that you want to say you have is not shining through. Get positive, be positive, and make it a habit. So when you think about it and you say, oops, my face is looking pretty down, pick it up. Start practicing and make it a habit. Now I want to talk about this professional image and appropriate dress a little bit, because this is something that we know, but sometimes we forget, especially if we've been out of the workforce for a while. Professional image means an outfit that is current, okay? So I would dare say it might be time to look through your closet and see what you have and make sure you can spruce it up a little bit if it's not already. And spruce it up doesn't mean looking like you're going to a party. It means looking like you're going to work. People will judge you based on your image. And, you know, you can be in the trend, but if you're wearing a hairstyle that looks like you're going to a party, that may not be a professional image. And now, especially, you know, we have these different colored nail polishes with designs on the nails that are too long. Doesn't look like you're serious. You need to make sure your hands look professional, that your shoes are polished, that your hairstyle is appropriate, and, you know, that it's not too low and revealing, but also that it's the right color, the right fit, all of those things, because people are going to judge you within the first 3 minutes. No, wrong. The first 30 seconds of seeing you. And so if you look like you've been partying all night, then, or you look like you're ready to go to a party, if you can wear the same thing out without doing anything to a dance that you were going to an interview, that you were going to wear to an interview, something's wrong. And you can ask other people to help you with that. So think about your hairdo, think about the clothes you wear. If you have rings and earrings that are too big or in places that they haven't been before other than your ear, you might want to take them out during an interview because you don't know how people are going to perceive them. All of these play in your job search. Your earrings can't be too big. And I want to just say this because I was the head of human resources for a very long time before starting my own company. And guess what? One of the things that would make me nuts are people wearing perfume to a job interview. You don't know if the person who is interviewing you is allergic or likes the perfume you're wearing. I would say to both ladies and men, if you're going on a job interview, it's probably safe to wear none. I know it smells good. I know you like it. But it's probably better to wear none. I'm saying it one more time. It's probably better to wear none, at least on the interview. Once you get the job, wear a little. But understand that sometimes it's overwhelming to the people that you're around, and better to be safe than sorry. Enough about professional image and appropriate dress at this time, but I want you to think about it. I want you to think about if you fit into any of these bills. And you may say after you get off of this, I don't care what Marcia said, I'm going to do it my way. But understand, then don't talk about people didn't hire you because of your age. It may be other reasons why they don't hire you. You have a choice in this process. I can only tell you from my side of the table and from talking to a lot of people that sometimes we think that it's about age when it has something to do with other things that we haven't thought about. Your friendliness, your patience, your good customer service are all going to be valued. There is not a company that's going to say, I didn't hire her because she was too patient, or I didn't hire him because he was too friendly, or I didn't hire them because their customer service skills was just too good. Never going to happen. So those are values that you can always demonstrate, and they will always be of value. Your communication skills. Think about it. If you're speaking up, if you're speaking clearly, if you're being diplomatic and respectful, once again, people value those skills and will hire you based on those skills, because often everyone doesn't have them. You will stand out in the crowd, and that's what you want to do. Regardless of your age, however, and I'm going to go back to this, computer literacy is necessary. As I said, there is no way that you're not going to need your computer skills in some way. So you just have to practice. If you have been afraid of technology, then it's time to start practicing. You can use tons of resources, including your phone, which I mentioned, if you have a smartphone. If you don't have a smartphone, you can always utilize computers at the Urban League, at the YMCA if one is in your area, at the public library. Now, I want to talk about the public library for a minute, because I want you to think about checking to see if they have computer classes. A lot of the public libraries just teach basic computer skills, how to use the keyboard, what that means. You need to utilize any of these resources that you can. And then the Department of Labor, because the Department of Labor also has courses and classes that can help you in that regard. Also, the other one is to ask people you know. You can't be afraid to ask for help. Now, don't be shy about asking for help. Learn the basics. Try new things. Sometimes there are, our children can help us. Our grandchildren can help us. People at our church can help us. Say you're trying to learn the basics if you don't know them. And if you do know the basics, you can do other things on the computer, because guess what? You cannot break the internet. You can't break it. You can research things. You can also, and this is one that I usually forget, but if you go into some of the stores, some of the big stores, Oftentimes, to fill out an application, you go sit at a booth and just get on the computer and put your application in that way. I'm going to ask you to practice that, even if it's preferably at a store where you don't want to work, because you just want to get a feel of the things they're asking. If you have never utilized one of those computer booths where you're filling out an application online, you should try it, just to see the types of questions they ask, just to see what keys are on the keyboard, just to see how you would go about doing it. And then if it's something that you don't know, you know that those are the things that you can ask someone who does know. Ask some of the people who are good at technology or are not afraid of technology to help you break through that. Remember, you cannot. I'm sorry? You cannot break the internet. So I think I've given you a couple of things to think about. I now want to open it up to some questions. What questions can I answer for you? What concerns do you have, and how might we address them this morning?
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Marcia. That was a great overview. I think we got a lot of great tips about that to focus on staying positive and the 3 Ps of practice, preparation, and remaining positive and open-minded. So everyone, I'm going to start to unmute your lines. If I hear any feedback, I will have to mute you again, but you can begin to submit your questions as well through when I hear the feedback. I'm going to try that again. Be sure to submit any questions you have through the chat window as well. So right now, is there a question on the line that we can start with? Any questions on the line? Okay, I hear a lot of feedback, so I see a question through the chat window, so I'm going to start with that. Just before I do, just a reminder for anyone who has the feedback, make sure that if you have dialed in using your telephone, that on the GoToWebinar window, the gray window on the side under audio, if you dialed in, make sure you choose the option that says telephone. If you are using your built-in microphone that's connected to your computer, make sure you choose the option that says mic and speakers. If you have mic and speakers on while you're dialed in, you're going to have a lot of feedback, and I won't be able to, I'll have to keep you on mute. So if in that case, be sure to type in your questions into the chat window. Okay, thanks for that. Housekeeping item, Marcia, one question that came in already is someone believes that they are positive and they are open-minded, but she wanted to know, is there an assessment that possibly they could take to kind of let them know where their skill sets are and kind of help validate that they are positive and open-minded, and it's not just an internal interpretation, but it is an assessment of where they are. Do you know of any assessment tools that you can suggest? Sorry, Marcia, I had you on mute as well. Sorry, Marcia, try that again. If you have any assessment tools that you know of that you can address to help someone who believes that they are positive and open-minded, but if there's anything that they can do. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, there's something that I would think of. The first thing that I think of, and I think you've heard me probably say this before, I'd say ask other people who are around you. I think that you can ask some people in different parts of your life to give you 2 or 3 adjectives that they would use to describe you. Okay? If no one has said positive, guess what? You're probably not as positive as you think. There are a number of assessments that you can take online about your attitude. Again, you start practicing that with technology. I'd say Google assessments regarding attitude, free assessments regarding attitude. I also say that if you're working with Urban League affiliates, ask your affiliate leader about some things that they would use, some words that they would use to describe you. You need to think of ways that you have demonstrated your positiveness. And if not, you can start practicing. It's not too late. One of the things that I say, and I said it during our talking, is that if you are positive, but your face doesn't demonstrate it, people tend not to notice your positiveness. If you ask people, can I help you with that? Or even speaking in the morning. I mean, I know that there are people who come into a session, come into the Urban League in the morning, and never say good morning. And then they say, oh, you know, I'm not a morning person. Well, guess what? You're also not very positive. So you need to change those things. These are things that you can do right away. Think about all the ways that you have demonstrated being positive. And I like to tell people, write them down. I want you to prove it to me. Write down all the ways that you've been positive. And then think about some of the ways that you haven't been. And then start practicing in that regard. Hope that was helpful.
Yes, thank you. I think even we can all take advantage of doing some self-assessments and writing them down as well, just to have something to soundboard against to see where we really stand. Everyone, I'm going to try to unmute your lines again. I'm going to start just one at a time to see if that helps with the feedback issue. I've just unmuted Carrie Petroli. I have you live, or I think you've muted yourself, so I can't unmute you. But if there are any questions that you want to chime in, you can do that now. Elvira as well, you're unmuted if you have any questions that you want to jump in. Feel free to take that time now. Geraldine Hooks, I'm going to unmute you. If you have any questions, go ahead. And I'm happy to hear there's no feedback, so that's great.
Okay. We have a question from Detroit. This is Ms. Watts working with UHY Geraldine Hooks, our participant staff. We have a question from a participant who wants to know how to work with a abrasive boss. Nothing is ever right, and she's very particular about the way she wants things done, and she kind of insinuates she's too old.
I'm not sure that I understood.
Right.
You said that she's working with a boss who says nothing is right?
Correct.
Okay. So the first thing, and this has nothing to do with age, okay? I understand that you may get a difficult boss at any age. If this is the first time she's having a difficult boss and she's a mature worker, consider herself lucky, because most of us have had more than one along the way. However, a conversation rather than an argument is usually a first step. So let's be clear. I mean, she has to find out, and she can ask this question. What is it that you need, and what am I not doing correctly that you would like to see different? And then, and this is the important part, stop and listen. This is not an argument. When somebody starts to tell you what they're looking for, stop and listen. You could evaluate it later, but you want to listen to what's not right. So when someone says to me, nothing is ever right, I say, chances are they're mishearing something as well. So don't assume that it's age related. Assume that it's a communication problem. So stop and ask the question. You've asked me to do this. What is it that I'm not doing that you want to see, because I'd like to get it right for you? And then stop talking and hear what the person has to say. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to have a difficult boss, but it means that you can start eliminating some of the issue because you're not arguing the point or you're not doing it and then finding out it's wrong. So make them explain to you. That demonstrates value as well.
Thank
Hope
you.
that's helpful.
Very much. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'm going to start to unmute the lines again. If anyone wants to chime in with a question, I'm just listening for any feedback.
Elvira.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to have, his name is Ken Sinkler. He's a participant on the program. He's going to ask his question.
Hello, everyone. I was reading on a Google blog while I was doing a search, something about dressing formally in the business community. It said that trends are showing that dressing up with a shirt and tie, as we traditionally have, is becoming passé, and it's being considered as overcompensating. Your thoughts on that subject, please?
Oh, well, first of all, Ken, thank you for asking the question. Second of all, I'm liking the fact that you said you were doing some research on Google. That means you're not afraid of technology, or at least going through that process, so thank you for that. You know, trends are funny, but dress means environmentally appropriate. I would say if you are going on an interview, better to be overdressed than underdressed. So when you go on an interview, you also want to watch and see how other people who are already working at that particular place are dressed. Now, everyone may not have on a tie, but if some have on a tie, you want to dress the way you want to be perceived. So if you go in with a print shirt and shorts and flip-flops, people won't take you seriously. So dress comfortably, but appropriate for the environment. And when you're going on an interview, I would say be overdressed versus underdressed. So for a male, I'm going to say it's going to be a shirt with a collar. It's probably going to be a tie. I'd rather have the tie with me and take it off than not have a tie and need one. And you probably need a jacket as well. Even if you end up carrying the jacket, have it with you. You know, let's go back to slide number 1 that says preparation. You want to be prepared. That also shows that you're thinking it through ahead of time. I have a quote that I say probably 100 times a week. Start with the end in mind. It's a Stephen Covey quote. Start with the end in mind. What do I want to get out of what I'm getting ready to do? If it's I want to get a job, then you want to prepare to get an offer. And that means you want to, how much does it's not going to take a lot to carry a tie with you or to have a tie and take it off. It's not going to be too much for you to carry a jacket. Have those things with you. For a woman, I'm going to say the same thing. It should not be a revealing top. It should probably have sleeves, at least short sleeves. You can always put a sweater or a jacket on over and then take it off after if it's too warm. You should not wear perfume. I'm going to stick by that. You can argue me down on that point. You should probably not have heels too high that you have to walk funny just because the trend is to wear platform shoes. They should probably be lower and comfortable so that you walk appropriately. Your jewelry should not be too big. And jewelry in odd places should come out. If you have tattoos, and I see that often now, they should probably be covered. Not they should probably, they should be covered. These are just, your hair should not be all over because the latest trend is to have it up and have it 3 colors. Your nails should be probably more mute than not, and not too long. And I know you want to put a design on the 3rd nail and 1 nail should be yellow in the middle. Wrong. You don't know who you're going to see. So be prepared for the most conservative person. You can always change that later after you get the job. Hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. I'm going to try to open the line again. I believe the affiliate, I'm not sure which affiliate, Carrie Petrelli. I believe you had a question. Is that right?
No, I was just signing in from my desk again. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Not a problem.
Thank you, though.
Marsha, I'm going to take a question that came through our chat window. We wanted to know how would you deal with workers who perceive you as too energetic or too hardworking, where if you're working in an environment, maybe that's coming off a little too strong. So how do you deal with workers who perceive you as too energetic or hardworking?
I laugh, and I laugh at this question because oftentimes I'm called the Energizer Bunny, so I might not answer this in a way that works. You know, I say you can. I don't know that you can be too energetic, but I think that you may need to tone it down some to just hear what they have to say. Now, oftentimes, people who think you're too energetic is because they're lazy. And if that's the case, don't tone it down for them. Is it your coworkers that think you're too energetic or your boss? Maybe they don't want you to be perceived as the right person for the job because you're just showing them up. And then you have a choice to make. You know, sometimes everyone doesn't want you to succeed. But I'd say too energetic is far better than not energetic enough. So sometimes it means toning it down. And maybe that usually means that they want something else. You know, maybe they figure like, you know, you're so energetic, you're moving so fast, you don't hear everything. Or you're moving so fast, you don't see everything. So kind of question that a little bit. But too energetic has usually not been perceived as a negative for your boss. For the people who count, it's usually not thinking you're too energetic. If it's your boss saying you're too energetic, then ask what can you do differently, because that might mean that you're missing something.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone who's sending in their questions through the chat window. I actually have 2 more. Marsha, with your experience as a senior HR person, as well as working with your different consultants and corporate partners, what would you identify as concerns that employers have about hiring mature workers? Have you heard or experienced any comments in the market and the workforce that you feel employers have as concerns for hiring employing mature workers? Any concerns that employers have?
Yeah, those are some of the ones that I mentioned when we first started. It's that that we don't know computers, or we don't know technology, that we get tired easily, that we have this perception that we know everything and we don't want to work with people who are younger than we are. And you know what the other one is that I've heard it, and I don't know that I went through this enough, is that we have physical limitations. And now let me talk a little bit about that one, because a lot of times, especially I've seen smaller companies worry about that one more. And what I mean by physical limitations is that you're going to get sick often, and it's going to drive their benefit cost up. Now that's just a thought. So if you say, I'm going back to work now, and when you're in your interview it says, because I've been sick for the last 8 years, but now I feel better and I want a job, people's ears are going to go up. So you want to go in showing that you're healthy. You want to look healthy. You want to talk healthy. You want to act healthy. That's one of the ones that I see as the biggest. The feeling tired, the physical limitations, the moving too slowly, and that you're just going to say, you know, I don't want to do that. That's beneath me. When you're looking for a job, most things can't be beneath you. And that's just a fact of life. And when you say, you know, I've been a office manager for the last 15 years, and now I'm not going to be somebody's assistant, then you're just taking yourself out of the job market. And you have that choice, but understand that you're taking yourself out of the job market. You can't blame it on, they don't want to hire me because I'm older. They don't want to hire you because you don't have an open mind and positive attitude. Very different.
Right. Okay, we have a couple more questions. We only have 10 minutes left, and I know you're going to close with an action item for everyone. So another question that came in is, can you date yourself on your resume? Meaning, if you put the date that you graduated from school, maybe...
Don't do it. Don't put the date that you graduated from school.
Okay.
Why? What you want to do is you want to put in, and this is something that the affiliates will teach you, and you know, because I'm sure you're going over resume writing and how to do your resume. You don't have to go back 45 years in work experience, because 45 years of work experience is not going to count. What you need to do is put relevant experience on your resume. And if your relevant experience was 45 years ago, and for the last 30 of those you've been doing something that's not relevant, then you're doing the wrong kind of resume. And so I can't teach you resume writing, but anybody, and I don't care when they graduate, need to put their year of graduation on their resume. You don't have to do it. You don't have to put your date of birth. You don't have to put your resume. I mean your year you graduated down. You want to put positive, relevant, work-related things on your resume. And there are tons of ways to do that.
Okay, great. Another question that came in is understanding that it's not ideal to jump from job to job, but you know it's important to be agile and flexible with respect to acquiring different skills to make yourself more marketable. What's your perception on someone who is jumping from job to job versus someone who's doing it for the purpose of developing new skill sets? Is there a pro? Is there a con?
Well, I think there are pros and cons in almost everything, but jumping from job to job, meaning how quickly. If someone is jumping from job to job every 6 months or less than a year, or even a year, less than 2 years, year and a half, I think I would question why. And if the interviewer says to you, why have you left the job? You say, because I want to get more skills. The first thing that I would think is that you're pretty impatient. Why couldn't you get those skills? What skills did you get at the new job that you couldn't get at the old one? So I'm going to question you on those type of things. So you have to be careful. I think that someone who has stayed at their job a very long time, 10 years, 20 years, may have a more difficult time than someone who has switched jobs every 2 or 3 years, actually, at this point. Because sometimes when you've stayed at a job a very long time, people think you only know how to do it the way the company that you were at has done it. And I'm going to say, I'll turn that around and say, if you've stayed at a job a very long time and you're now looking for a new job, you need to talk about some other things that you've done outside of that job that are relevant. You know, while I was working at this job, I worked there 20 years, but I had different positions in the company, and I did this, 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 and this. And I worked in the community doing this with people outside of work, because you want to talk about the other skills you have. If you have changed jobs on a frequent basis, you want to show some consistency somewhere. So I think it goes hand in hand. Staying someplace too long, you have to show that you're still flexible. Staying someplace too short of a time means that you have to show that you are consistent and patient. So you need to look at both.
Okay, great. I agree about showing that you're consistent yet flexible and trying to take advantage of as many skills that you can get while you're on that job before you jump to another. I think that's great advice. One more question, and we have about 5 minutes left, so I think this might be the last question. If anyone else has questions, just use the chat window, send them in. We'll try to get those answered either on the next call or maybe through email. But the last question I'm going to ask, Marsha, before we wrap up is, do you believe if a position requires you to have a degree and you feel you have the qualifications for that job but you don't have the degree, should you apply?
Yes. Yes. And you know, I want to talk about this for a minute. This is such a good question, because if you wait for everything to be perfect, that you meet every single thing that a company has said they wanted, you're going to miss out on some opportunities. Remember, think about this. The company is trying to put everything down that they say they want. Don't necessarily need all of that, but if I have the opportunity to say I want these things, why wouldn't I say that as an employer? If you tell me I have 9 of the 10 things, I have 7 of the 10 things you want, and I'm a good employer, and you can show value, then you should apply. Listen, the worst thing that could happen is that they don't hire you. But guess what? If you don't apply, they won't hire you. So you need to be able to do both. Apply for jobs that you think you're qualified for, and then practice discussing, practice articulating why you bring value and why you should be hired. And that doesn't mean you have to go bullet point by bullet point. It means you have to talk about being able to do the job and demonstrating that you can do the job. So having a degree may come in play, but it doesn't have to. They're just putting down what they think they need.
That's great. And Marsha, I know I said that was the last question, but I see that I missed a question earlier. I'm so sorry. I'm just going to squeeze this in before we move to the last part. From your experiences and your perspective, are there any particular industries that are geared to mature workers?
No, not that I think of. Not that I can think of. That doesn't mean there aren't any, but I think that most industries are trying to get a diverse group of employees. And diverse means male and female, it means different ethnicities, and it means different ages, so that they can have diversity of thought. So I don't think there's a particular industry that is going to say, oh no, I really want to just hire all older workers. I also don't think there's industries to say only want to hire younger ones. I think you should think about the job you want, not just about the job that's open, a job that you see, because I'm a strong believer that you don't find a job just by going online. I think I personally tell my clients to think about 5 or 10 companies that they would like to work at. Research those companies. That means doing Google searches like Ken is doing. And it means going to their website and seeing what they talk about and being able to articulate why you want to work with them, and then sending a resume to them. Or then going on, and I don't know how many of you are on LinkedIn, but going on LinkedIn and networking. It means, and we didn't even talk about networking, which is so vitally important. People hire people they know. So you want to get out there and talk to people and meet people. You want other people singing your praise even when you don't know. You want people telling you about jobs even when you haven't seen them. So it means networking as well. And I don't think that's by industry. I think that's by people who have job openings at the time. And oftentimes jobs they're thinking about who they want to hire before the job ever becomes open. So you want to get out there and be known. You know, make people know you exist, and make people know that you're a positive person. And it doesn't make a difference what industry that is. Think about what industry you want to be in, and then come up with 5 or 10 companies that are in that industry, and then research them like crazy, and meet people who worked in those industries, and talk to people in those industries, and join chat groups in that industry. There's so many things you can do if there's an industry you want. But don't leave it up to, oh, I didn't see a job open there. Think about what you want first, and then go after that accordingly.
That's great, Marcia. It goes back to what you said about having the end in mind first. So that's going to end our call. I want you to wrap up with any final words that you have and the call to action that you're asking for all the participants today.
Okay, I want to just go back to one other thing before I do this call to action. You know, when I was talking about practice, and I talked about the smartphone, and I talked about, you know, utilizing Google, and I talked about LinkedIn just a little bit, but I want you to ask about it. If you don't know about LinkedIn, I want you to start asking people about LinkedIn, because we don't have time to go through that. We talked about going to big stores and going on to their application process so that you can try it and see how it feels and get comfortable with that. 2 other things that I didn't mention that I want to make sure you do. I want you to start Skyping with people. If you have a computer, Skype is free. I want you to Skype with someone, and I don't care if it's your grandchild, your child, your next door neighbor. I want you to get comfortable showing your face online, because so many companies, the initial interview may be online. It may be one of the calls that they're looking at you and saying, and you want to see how you look on the screen, and you can talk more about that as well. But FaceTime and Skype are 2 of the ways that I'm seeing that a lot of interviewers do their initial interview process. So with that in mind, the call to action, I'm going to ask each and every person that hears my voice to write down. They don't have to share it with me, but I want them to write it down, and they may have to share it with their affiliate leaders. List 3 things that you will do by the end of the month to move your job search forward. 3 things that you will do to move your job search forward. We've talked about a lot of things. If you've done something, how much more of it are you going to do? But 3 things that you're going to do, that you're going to commit to doing by the end of the month. That gives you a couple of weeks to move your job search forward. Remember, you can't break the internet. You can't be too friendly. We talked about all of those things. Write them down. Write them down, hold yourself accountable. If you're serious about looking for a job, you will do this action step. I hope this has been helpful to you.
Yes, Marcia, I think you've provided so much great content and tangible resources and skills for people to tap into, to utilize for their job search. So I want to give you a big thank you from the Urban League for all of your support, and thank you for doing this webinar for our first ever. You were the very first one, so thanks for being the first one of our virtual job readiness development series. So thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who participated. I look forward to next week on Thursday when we'll be talking more about these skill sets that Marcia brought up and how you can demonstrate them and how to utilize your past experiences and talk about them as a transferable skill into the various industries that you're interested in, followed by our last event of the series at the end of the month, where we'll be talking about, we'll have a staffing agency recruiter giving you tips about how to enhance your cover letter, your resume, and even getting prepared for an interview. So thank you again for everyone who joined today. Marcia, thank you so much. And that is it. I hope everyone has a great day and a great morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Very much.
Thank you.
Okay.